Hello and welcome to The Hype, where minds collide and ideas amplify. I'm your host, Zhao Chenchen, coming to you from Beijing. Our show is currently live throughout all of our platforms on our official website, mobile applications, and all the social media platforms. So do tune in wherever you see us and leave a comment and let us know your voice. Today's topic, extreme weather challenges and youth power, youth leaderships in climate action. Now, as the world turning to the upcoming G20 summit, climate actions also takes the center stage. And today, we'd like to take this chance to explore how young leaders are driving the conversation in climate action. So please allow me to introduce our wonderful guests here today. On my left is Zhang Shangchen from Tsinghua University and also the co-founder of the Net Zero Carbon Association at the school. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So please say hi to our global audience.
Hello.
And to his left is Felipe Leite, also a doctoral student from Tsinghua University and School of Environment. And he is from Brazil, which is the hosting country for the G20 summit. Please say hi to our global audience. And joining us online is Connor Wright, a Y20 youth representative from Australia. Hello to you. Please say hi.
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing?
Good. How's everyone?
Good, good. Welcome you all to the show. So, as I said, we see an exacerbating of extreme weathers. So before we dive into our discussion today, let's take a look at a video that reminds us of the weather events.
The era of global warming has ended, the era of global boiling has arrived. The air is unbreathable, the heat is unbearable, and the level of fossil fuel profits and climate inaction is unacceptable. Leaders must lead. No more hesitancy, no more excuses, no more waiting for the others to move first. There is simply no more time for that.
Yes, indeed, there's simply no time for that. And the video may have exaggerated the events a little bit more, but why don't we start from our own personal experiences? Felipe, you've been in both Brazil and China. What's your observations on the extreme weather events, whether be it in Brazil or China?
Yeah, in Brazil, in the last few years, we have experienced some severe phenomena that were not common in our country before. Yeah. Like very intense floods, storms, and tornadoes are now taking place in the southern littoral of Brazil. This year, southern Brazil experienced maybe the most severe flooding episode in the history, which caused hundreds of deaths and millions in damage in infrastructure and business and everything.
And I also heard that there's droughts happening in Brazil, as China has the largest hydropower plant on one of the rivers.
Yeah, that's in North region. North and Central West regions usually experience wildfires during the dry seasons, but recently they became way more vast and severe, yeah.
Yeah, and the vast contrast, the north and south, droughts and floods happening at the same time really worries me and I believe you too.
Yeah, that wasn't normal.
Yeah, and how about Connor? You are in Australia and it's, I believe it's summer there right now?
Yeah. So Australia is slightly different in the way that we have very big bushfire seasons. And bushfires are common in Australia, but what we're seeing is they're more frequent and they're a lot more intense. On top of that, we have longer summers and shorter winters that are happening now as well. And this is not typical, and it's increasing every day.
Yeah. So, Xiangchen, I know that you study environment.
Yeah.
Tell us, are these events normal to see based on, analysis, or are they getting more severe than we thought?
Yeah, so first of all, the extreme weather events are normal to see because it's just compared to the historical record. But what is not normal is the frequency and the severity of the extreme weather we are experiencing. And then imagine that in the future, what can be called extreme weather today won't be called extreme weather in the future because there are bigger one, so more severe one in the future. So today's extreme weather will be the normal situation of the future. And that's because our Earth system is absorb more and more energy from the sun. And it has to be somewhere to release the energy. And it comes to the extreme weathers, heat waves, flooding, hurricanes, what we are experiencing in the previous years.
And how are these events going to affect our health issues?
Yeah, so what we would say, like, all of the disease we are experiencing are related to the climate change because it will make the heat strokes and the heart strokes.
And heart strokes too.
Yeah, heart strokes too. And even like for some infectiousness disease or the pregnant people will be harmed more. And there are three like typical chains that's like the direct injury and the changing environment and the spread of infectiousness disease will also be more and more. Yeah.
That sounds really worried.
Yeah.
What about other issues, Felipe? Any other insights you could bring on how extreme weather events is going to affect us?
Yeah, the temperature rising is affecting all the natural cycles, globally speaking. The jet streams, the oceanic circulation is all driven by temperature. This way we are facing already, and in future I believe we're going to face it way more intense. The shifts in the availability of water in the global wise, decreasing of hydric resources, and slowest renovation and slower recycling of our hydric resources. That will be probably one of the major issues we are going to face.
Yeah. And also, we have someone from online, Alex123, saying that extreme weather has really impacted my life. A recent storm left us without power for days. I worry about what this means for my future, and we'll certainly go to that discussion later on. Yes, if you could also tell us where you're from, would be really appreciated. Yeah, you mentioned water resources, and what you're working on is wastewater treatment, is it? Tell us more about it. How is it going to address the climate change?
Well, as I said, as the hydric resources are going to become lower, newer technologies that can speed up the water treatment and water recycling will be more than welcome in the future. And the urge for those technologies is just going to increase more and more as much as the hydric resources become more scarce.
Yeah, so what you're doing is basically to provide fundamental theories for new technologies in order for them to better recycle the water or treat water.
Yeah, I studied the interactions between bivalves used in water treatment systems and water pollutants with special focus on microplastics.
Okay. Connor, do you have anything to add on to this conversation? That how is extreme weather affecting any aspects of our lives?
Well, I think it's pretty prevalent that as climate changes get worse, and as I talked about seasonal changes before, that things will start to become more normalized. And this was mentioned before, where extreme weather events that were not necessarily extreme in the future are extreme now, and that's just because they're going to become more common and more prevalent. One of the things is that as youth, we're living in this reality, and it's been our whole life. We haven't known a world without climate change. And so I think we are in a very good position to be able to solve these problems because we have the real lived experience of dealing with this our whole lives.
Got it. Thank you. But should we really just need to be get used to these events, or should we do something to prevent us from being harmed from it, right? So, Shangchen, you started this student association.
Yeah.
Now, tell us more about it, and what was your original initiatives?
Yeah, thank you for the question. For the association, we start from like 2 years before. Me and a few good friends, we discovered that even though like we believe addressing climate change needs all sectors' efforts,
Of the
but
society.
yeah, of the society. But the one of our friends who studied the public policy, she went to the like consulting industry, and she found out that because she's really into the sustainability issues, but she wants to do more projects about it. But it's really hard to find the knowledge about it. There's either the really professional knowledge from the academians. They will talk about the most cutting-edge technologies in the laboratory, or there are some like videos tell you what's carbon dioxide, tell you what's the global warming, and there's a really huge knowledge gap about how to implement the knowledge into the real business in like law area, public policy, or in finance, all of them. But we are those like who study climate change, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we know about the knowledge, and our friends in Tsinghua, they are in different departments. They have their own expertise. So we want to like use some small cases to teach them like, okay, in your expertise, in your field, like fashion field, or like in
fashion.
Yeah, fashion,
That's
or
interesting.
yeah,
That's interesting to explore.
yeah, or computer science. What can your contribution to the climate, and what's the knowledge you need to handle? So we use like different cases, such as a Green Winter Olympic at that time. So we tell them like, yeah, how Winter Olympic become net zero, and how it can like use the technologies, how to plan it, and what's a different role of people playing in that Olympics. So it's really successful case studies. People learn a lot from
Nice
it.
method.
Yeah.
So your job is to fill in the gap between theories and actions.
Yes.
And you also tell the stories of people how are working with the climate change or taking actions in combating
Yes.
climate change.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Any comments from you, Felipe? What do you think of
I
their? Since you come from the same school, are you
Yeah.
participating?
Not exactly the same school,
Oh,
but
okay.
the same university.
Same university.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a brilliant proposal, since we have a lot of theories and ideas, but the gap between them and the initiatives is still an issue. So
Yes.
I think your research is very important, and thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
for
you.
recognition.
And how about now let's go to Connor. So we'd really like to hear more from you, since you've participated in the G20 Youth Summit. So tell us more about your proposals on the environmental policies or climate protection measures.
Sure. So I contributed most to probably 2 proposals out of 15. One was to strengthen efforts to end deforestation by 2030, and another one was to ensure the rights of Indigenous people and traditional communities, as well as having ownership in any projects that happen on their lands. Reason for the second one is I'm also Indigenous Australian, and going back to what you guys are talking about with knowledge systems and the gap between sort of implementing these knowledge systems and maybe something into policy or any sort of law mechanisms, is we have the knowledge available, and it is what you were saying. It's like bridging this gap is very hard. And so I think we need to look at examples on a local level as well, because people at a local level, like Indigenous communities, have very strong knowledge in the areas that is related to their environment, as well as their relationship to the environment is very different. A lot of, I would say, Western culture and some other cultures as well see themselves as above the environment, but that's just not true. We're as just part of the environment as every other living being.
Yes, I totally agree. I mean, like sometimes I do feel like local people, or for people from different countries, they have their own wisdom. Yeah. Let's say, for us Chinese, our older generations, like our grandparents, they have their own. They are very persistent in, for example, water saving, and how they gather water, reuse, recycle the water within a family. That's what my grandma does before. I don't know about you. You learn anything from them?
Yeah, my grandma does exactly the same
right?
as your grandma.
Right. Yes, yes. And if we could share all these wisdom out with our global audience and to let more people know that people are actually taking actions, that would be a really wonderful thing to do. Now, Connor, do you notice any, hindrance when implementing your initiatives?
There's always going to be pushback when dealing with other countries. There's cultural perceptions. There's even the way some words are interpreted, maybe different by different cultures, different people. So it's really about working together. Most of the pushback I saw when I was working on the climate change policies with the other Youth 20 delegates was really just about the nuance of the words and how different people interpreted different words and sort of
an example
there was no red lines. One I could probably give was I guess in the first one, in my deforestation policy, we stated strengthen efforts to end deforestation instead of I think the original wording was encourage, and that's just because strengthen is more strong. It's giving more of an oomph, and that's because we're youth delegates. We're here to inform the leaders about ambitious policy changes. We're not here to sort of toe the line. We're here to give them a vision for the future.
Right, right. Yes, and indeed, communication is really important, and that's what we're here to trying to do. Now, just very briefly, any advice you have for our younger generation to get them more involved with climate actions?
I would like to say the young generations are a key factor in our struggle against the climate issues. And I think they have a very important role, which is influencing the old generations. Through their small daily habits at home, they can actually play an influence over their parents and grandparents with these new early good habits that they build. It's much easier to build early good habits than fixing the bad old ones, right?
Yes.
So the young generations are the key for that, for a better future regarding the environment.
Yeah, I guess for that part, for us is like we need to learn more from our older generation. Right? Yeah.
So I want to add about the implementation part because, like, when we talk about climate actions, we will talk about the part of the end of the century or in the mid of the century. That means that for the younger generation now, in our career path, we will be the generation who really do the carbon neutrality, really do the climate action.
Take lead in these actions.
Yeah, so where will be the future, like the policymakers, the scientists, like, so from now on, learn about the climate change and how it will influence our life in the future. And when we get into that position, we need to
We're ready for that.
Yeah, ready for that and do better actions.
Yes, indeed. And I guess that's also one of the central topic for G20, as the G20's efforts is to address climate change and have a profound impact on the future young people. So now, yes, since we're talking about G20, we'd really like to go to Connor. How has your role as a youth representative changed your perspective on climate and environmental issues?
I would say that one of the biggest things is that climate change is an issue that it needs collaboration.
Right.
And I learned being part of these processes that a lot of these issues are both domestic and international at the same time. And to solve a domestic issue, you also need to collaborate on an international level, because when one country pollutes, it affects many other countries, all the other countries around the world. And there are many countries who are more vulnerable than other ones like that. So there's also an equitability issue. And so there needs to be joint collaboration, and it needs to be streamlined in a much more efficient way.
Yeah, so from your perspective and your own practices, how can young people engage more in discussions on climate change at an international forums like the G20?
One big one I would give is find out who your youth representative leader is for either this year or next year. Get in touch with them. I'm sure they'll be happy to know what the big issues are for you. And also look out for opportunities to get involved yourself. If you want to be the youth representative for Australia or for China or for Brazil, look out for these opportunities. I'm sure they're out there that you need to do. That isn't just the G20, I mean. The other youth forum representative options as well. And, you know, you have every right to be a young person in this room talking about the future, because as a young person, you're going to inherit the future.
Yes, indeed. And to our guests here,
Perfect.
Are you participating in any of these forums in addition to G20?
No, I wasn't into the G20, but I was in the UFCCC, like the climate conference, in 2019 and 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, as a youth representative there.
Oh, you were also a youth representative.
Yeah, but it was in the climate COP.
Climate COP.
Yeah, the United Nations Climate Conference.
I see.
Which is happening now as well. Yeah.
What about you, Philip?
Not for now, besides the G20.
But what policies or initiatives do you hope to see at the G20 meeting to tackle climate issues?
I think the main one I would like to see, that the main outcome is setting realistic and substantial limits in percentage for the decreasing of CO2 emissions. And that these percentages would be fairly distributed between developed and developing countries. I think if this could happen out from this summit, that would be already a big advance.
Yeah, for sure. And Xiangchen, you work on carbon neutrality.
Yeah.
Tell us more about it and how maybe, you know, how can we set more feasible goals?
Yeah, so I want to start from the collaboration, like yeah, my friends mentioned before, because it's not only because about countries understand the externality of the carbon emissions. It's also about like the collaborations in the carbon neutrality pathways, because developed countries have different technologies, have different abilities to address climate change. So I think it's more a more visible goal is that for the developed countries, they can provide some technologies and finance, even just direct fundings to developing countries to set up a more ambitious goal. Because we all know that ambitious goal is good, but how to implement it, how to reach it, it's more important. And if we have the knowledge, technologies, and the fundings, it will be much more easier for the developing countries.
Do you think the developed countries had done enough?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I mentioned like the climate COP is happening right now, and they are negotiating about the new collective and quantified finance goals till like the next 5 years. So from the latest report, it says the developed countries, they promise to give our $1 trillion per year, but it's not.
We'll have to wait and see the outcome.
Yes, so yeah, I would say.
But also encourage them all in a collective effort to implement these actions.
Yes.
Right. Connor, you have anything to comment on? Just jump right in. You know.
I would just say I completely agree with what you're saying about countries who have a bigger capacity to address these issues, to help and supply technology and resources to countries who maybe don't have the same capacity. This is a global issue, so solving it as a global collective is much more efficient than a country solving it by itself.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Well, global collaboration is indeed very important. I'd like to take this chance to share with you a viral article that was online a couple months ago in China, and saying that individuals born in the 1980s and 1990s, which I believe includes all of us, may struggle to enjoy a peaceful and comfortable retirement due to the growing challenges posed by climate change. Now, this raises another important questions about the future and the impact of extreme weather. So I want to what do you think are the challenges? And yeah, that these challenges we are all going to face in the future.
Yeah, if it can make sense. This generation, our generation, we are going to age as at the same time when the environmental issues will become more and more severe. So we will probably be in a quite advanced age when the environmental problems outcomes will be more intense. So I believe our generation is going to suffer considerably more than the youngest one.
And what are the specific challenges that you anticipate?
So for me, I'm even like younger than the 90s generation.
Yeah.
So
what year were you born? You're born in the...
yeah, I was born in the 2000.
2000. So yeah, you're nearly the alpha. Nearly the alpha.
Yeah, I'm nearly the alpha. Yeah. So,
are you worried?
Yeah, I'm super worried because every day I look at the data of the future projections. I'm so worried about the future.
So you look at the data, you look at the model.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about measures, right, and actions, right? What measures can we take to prevent these our generation from facing severe challenges?
Well, besides the measures that all generations should take about taking care of our daily activity regarding the environment, we should take special care with our health, preserving our good health for the moment when the conditions will be too severe for us to endure that.
Yeah. Anything else?
So I agree that we should start from the daily life because I always say that the extreme weather will only get worse and worse in the future. But how worse it will be, it really depends on the climate actions we take now, how much we mitigate now. And also like the knowledge to protect us. Like I'm now studying about the climate and health issues. So it's about like how we design our cities, infrastructures, healthcare systems, and change our daily lives, lifestyles, like how to react to the early warning system. Like when you receive a heat wave warning, how can you do to protect your parents, grandparents, or yourself? Like by turning on the air conditioning or
avoid going outside too often.
Yes, and to avoid some specific sport at some time of the day. That's all the knowledge can protect yourself in the future. And it's really good to change the lifestyles to know that environment change because it's not visible as a air pollution.
Right.
Yeah, so it's good to care about the earning and to care about how to change your lifestyle to a healthier way.
So get ourselves prepared by strengthening our health conditions and also get us more prepared in terms of knowledge and in being informed. And also these are the aspects that we can take actions right away, right? Carter, anything from you? Yes.
Yeah, I think it's all well and good to talk about individual actions because obviously you need to take care of yourself. But on a more institutional level, we need to be taking action now in terms of adaptation. It's a reality that these climate effects are affecting everyone, and it is a reality that's going to get worse. A researcher that I was talking to was telling me about how the older generation was very reluctant to talk about adaptation. They were seeing talks of adaptation as more of giving up, that if you talk about adaptation, you don't care about mitigation anymore. You've just accepted that climate change is going to get worse and everyone's going to have to deal with the consequences. I think the view that we should be taking now is that we should be focusing on both. We should be focusing on both mitigation and adaptation at the same time. Right. And on top of that, the adaptation needs to be equitable because people who have less access to resources, less wealth, less community support are going to be the ones who are most affected by these. And I think the adaptation needs to target those people first so that our most vulnerable in our communities are not at risk.
Right. I think you brought up a very important aspect, that is to have adaptation and taking action at the same time, and also bring the information to everyone. And that is also what we're here, hopefully, to do. Now, more on the future, how do you think the advanced technologies is going to help us whether to get people more informed or to protect us from severe events?
So first, I would say there's two surprise findings in the previous months, like in our research. First is that the extreme weather is far beyond our projections. It's getting much more severe than what we thought in the models.
Is there a percentage you could share with us?
It's more like the top temperature and the I would say the heat wave days within a year is much more longer, and it's kind of like 10 to 20% than we projections. Yeah.
Oh.
And then for another surprise findings is that because usually we set up the carbon neutrality goals or pathways, and we believe that it will cost us a lot of money to achieve it, and to achieve the carbon neutrality will cost us lots of money, according to our model in the previous years, because we believe that the technology will be expensive and we can't predict it advanced enough in the future.
But what's the actual finding?
Yeah, but the actual findings is that we can see that the renewables, as solar, the wind energy, are much more cheaper than what we expected before. So it's kind of the advantages or good things from the technology advancements that we can get the new things and to achieve our goal in much cheaper and
to achieve a green transition globally.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. That reminds me of how the green technology is evolving here in China. And we're having all the solar panels and wind power, hydro plant, all clean energies, right? And we're also sharing these technologies to other parts of the world. For example, Brazil is a very huge partner with China in exchanging these green technologies. Do you have any personal experiences witnessing these?
Since I left Brazil in 2019, I know from that time to now the wind generation of electricity has been growing in some regions of Brazil, but I actually haven't experienced that myself. I haven't seen that with my own eyes because it started to grow after my coming to China.
Yeah, well, sometimes it might just happen, without you knowing it, because the green, the renewable energy is generated by green electricity just connects to the grid, and you're actually sometimes might be just using green electricities. And that is also happening here now in China. Yeah. Any new technologies, Connor, you want to share with us that you've observed in Australia?
Australia has a very particular relationship with renewables. We have such a big capacity to be able to be such a powerhouse in renewables. We have so much wind, so much land for solar. And one of the things that Australia, too, is looking into is hydrogen fuel as well. Problem is, of course, is that, as was said, these renewables are getting cheaper and cheaper. But it seems that a lot of fossil fuel companies are reluctant to transition in any meaningful way. We've seen time and time again that these fossil fuel companies have spent trillions and billions of dollars to pump out misinformation campaigns instead of doing any actual work on the ground. And that's happening here in Australia. That's happening all around the world. It's even shown from many studies that a lot of oil and gas companies are set to lose trillions of dollars if they don't transition towards these more renewable energy initiatives, but they just don't seem to be doing it.
Now, is there anything you hope to do to promote for more adoptions of green energies, or any of you could share of that, not only green energies, but any sorts of new technologies? How can these technologies help us to drive for more climate actions, to take more actions in targeting climate changes?
Yeah, because we are now talking about the artificial intelligence these years, I would say we obviously like climate change is an amplifier of all the disasters, problems in our society. I would say AI can be another amplifier for our productivity and technologies as well, because
right. So I believe you're also using you are also incorporating artificial intelligence into your model predictions.
Yes, but it's really trendy in our research. Yeah, because we use artificial intelligence to project the future climate, project the future Earth system, and we also use them to build up our early warning system to give people specific advice on their daily life to avoid the extreme weather of health impact on themselves and their relatives.
Right.
Yeah, so it will be a good, huge progress.
Yes. Is there any warning system in Brazil that you could share with us in terms of, is there any warning system on extreme weather events in Brazil?
Not up to my knowledge. No,
how do you
not
hope
so
it could
far.
get improved in the future?
I don't know. I have no knowledge about this. Sorry.
Okay. Connor, you have anything to add on that?
We don't have any. We don't have any sort of early warning system for.
Not even news.
We have news, but in terms of like cyclones, floods, yes. But if there was going to be some sort of like new technology coming out from that is divergent from traditional methods, we don't really have anything new that's coming up that I'm aware of. I would love to hear about your early warning systems that you're working on with AI. That sounds interesting.
Yeah. Shanchen, would you like to share more on that? How is our system working here? I mean, for me personally, it's more like receiving push notifications from all the news apps that's saying that, or let's say heat waves are coming and avoid going out. Also through all the weather apps is more on the mobile applications wise. Yeah. Any other things, systems that we're building here that you're aware of?
Yes, because so here we have two pilot cities here in China, like Tianjin and Shanghai. For the Tianjin one, they are a specific or special early warning system for stroke people or for stroke risk people, like for example in the heat wave or in extreme cold weathers. The scientists will tell the government like, okay, there will be a huge risk for some of the vulnerable people, and the government will send the messages to the vulnerable people's phone, and also the hospitals, the huge hospitals and the community healthcare, primary healthcare institutes, they will go to the vulnerable people's home, such as elderly people at home, and will take care of them, and even the family doctor will adjust the medicine for some risk people.
People at high risk.
Yes, and it's really interesting that because it's really saving a lot of money for the government, because we know that we have public health insurance in China.
Right.
Yeah, so they built the system like use 4 million RMB, and in 2 years, they earned back 28 million RMB. Because of the saving of the health insurance.
Oh, so through this early warning system, particularly addressing the more vulnerable people, our health insurance system actually saves a lot of money.
Yes.
That also protects those people from getting sick.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful to learn. Yeah. So today, we're also lucky to be joined by a special guest who will be participating in this year's G20 summit. Let's welcome Vinicius LaGuardia, who is a climate consultant and based in Brazil. Now, Vinicius, why do you believe young people are the key to climate actions? And as someone who will be attending the G20, what more do you think can the G20 do to create more meaningful opportunities for young people to participate in climate policymaking?
Well, I believe that the youth has a vital role in fighting the climate crisis. We are a generation that will face many of the climate hazards that are already happening in our world. But to do so, we have to be empowered to take action in our economy. And to do so, I believe that the green jobs are vital in the transformation of our economy. Green jobs are the ones that were created or will be created to help society to transit to a green economy. It will be a huge challenge. Like here in Brazil, the World Economic Forum points out that we have to increase in 71% the workforce in green jobs by 2030. This is a great opportunity, but it's also a big challenge. And to meet this challenge, we have to have policy making that is youth-led and that's going to see the green jobs and the transformations that our society needs. Well, I believe that G20 and this meeting that's going to happen here in Brazil next week will be a great opportunity to push this agenda forward and to create public policies that are really meant to help the youth to take place on the green jobs and in the green economy. I think that this is a pivotal moment in our society, and I believe that the G20 is already listening a little bit on the youth, and that's how it's going to happen. Many of these new and innovative policies that will help the world to transit to green economy.
Wonderful. Felipe, since you're also from Brazil, the green jobs that Vinicius just mentioned, do you have more? Could you give us more examples and could you comment on that?
I'm sorry, at the moment I have no knowledge about that.
Okay. Well, still, I really appreciate all of your insights today. And after hearing from all of our speakers, I believe that there's still one key question that remains for us all to think about. That is, are we truly ready to be prepared for the more frequent extreme weather events? And I hope this conversation can prompt all of you to think about it and then take actions, not only for yourselves, but also the people around you, people you care about. And remember that the future is in our hand. And that wraps up our discussion today and wraps up our show today. Thank you all for tuning in, and please stay tuned for CGTN for more coverage on the G20 Summit. That's it for our show, and thank you all for joining. Goodbye. Let's all say goodbye. Bye, Connor.
Bye.